From the first day that they met, Tega thought that she had found the kind of love that every woman prayed to have. Raymond was tall, charming, and carried himself with the confidence of a man who knew what he wanted. He was a billionaire, and from the very first day, he made it clear that what he wanted was her. However, there was a problem. He wanted her bigger. She remembered their first dinner together at a small restaurant in Lekki. Raymond had ordered more food than she could ever finish, pushing plates towards her as he cajoled her to eat. Eat, my queen. I don't like skinny women. A skinny woman is a hungry woman, and my woman can never be seen as hungry. Tega had laughed it off then, thinking that he was only joking. What she did not know was that this was the beginning of a dangerous love story that she would live to regret. At first, he felt flattered. The world had taught her that women had to be small and skinny, almost invisible to be loved. For Raymond, love the complete opposite. A chubby queen, as he would always say with a huge smile on his face. Tega loved his sincerity. She was tired of constantly watching her weight, going to the gym to keep fit. In fact, Tega loved food so much. She loved eating junk food, but had to keep away from them because of her fear of putting on extra pounds. Now, here she was, with a man who loved her a bit more curvy and thick. Raymond made her feel like growing curves were a crown that she wore for him alone. Almost every evening, he would appear at her doorstep with fast food, fried rice and grilled chicken, or amala, drowning in thick egusi soup swimming in palm oil. One more bite, he would say, as his hands lingered on her shoulder and his eyes looked at her with love. Tega told herself that she was lucky to have a man like Raymond, who loved his women big and would never judge her if she put on a bit of weight. Unlike the women who their husbands abandoned after childbirth because they put on a few pounds, Tega considered herself lucky to have a man who not only celebrated her but also got her all sorts of gifts whenever she put on more weight. Within months, Tega's body began to change. Her once slim frame filled out, her face rounder and her hips wider. At first, it was thrilling. People in her neighborhood whispered, for Raymond being with pride wherever they went. See my queen, he would boast to his friends, wrapping a possessive arm around her waist. This is what a real woman looks like, he would say, and by their 1 year anniversary, she had gone from a size 10 to a size 20, and Raymond went down on his knees and asked her to be his wife. Tega was so over the moon. She paid her family a visit that weekend to break the news to them, and everyone stood there stunned to see her this big. Her mother, being a nurse, pulled her aside into the kitchen. Concern edged deeply across her face. Tega, my daughter, she whispered, looking her up and down. This is not healthy. You're breathing heavily, just from walking from the gates to the house. Your blood pressure could be high. Have you done any checkups? She asked Tega, who laughed at her, brushing her mother's worries aside. Mommy, it's nothing. Raymond likes me like this. He says I'm perfect, she said to her mother, whose eyes narrowed as she asked her when her health concerns became less important than a man's preference. But Tega rolled her eyes and kissed her mother on the cheek, assuring her that she was fine. She returned to the living room to show off her engagement ring, and although her sisters were happy, they were concerned about the man who made their sister put on so much weight. They tried to speak to her about it, asking why she had to change herself to please a man, and Tega stared at them mockingly, saying that at least she was engaged, unlike them who were asleep but still had no man in their lives. Tega could not stand their judging eyes any longer. She walked into her room angry and shut the door, making up her mind to leave the next morning. Her mother walked into her room hours later to speak with her. She already knew how angry Tega was and decided not to make things worse. She asked Tega to tell her more about her fiancé, and Tega could not contain her joy. She started talking about Raymond as if he were the answer to her prayers. She gushed about how caring he was, how he protected her, how he never made her feel bad about her body. Her eyes sparkled in a way that her mother had never seen before, and her mother could not doubt that she was in love. She smiled faintly, but deep inside, she was so terrified. Something about this man did not sit right with her, so in a calm voice, she made a request that Tega could not refuse. "Tega, my daughter, I would like to meet Raymond properly, not just in passing or on the phone. Let him come to the house. I want to speak with him," she said to Tega, who agreed. "Of course, mommy, I'll bring him. I'll show you that you will love him once you see how amazing he is," she said to her mother, who feigned a smile. Weeks later, Raymond arrived at Tega's family home, sharply dressed and with a smile that was so captivating. Her mother welcomed him warmly as she began to ask him some questions about himself. Raymond, being the ever-charming man that he was, answered all her questions with ease. He spoke about himself and his work, and Tega's mother could not help but see why her daughter did all that she did. Raymond was a smooth talker who had a way of making every word sound like poetry. He spoke about his deep respect for women, about how much he adored Tega, and how he would do anything to protect her happiness. Her mother listened quietly, smiling politely, but her instinct still whispered that something was off. After some time, she turned to her daughter and said, "Tega, my dear, please go into the kitchen and bring the pepper tea that we made specially for Raymond." Tega, eager to impress her fiancé with her mother's cooking, stood up quickly and disappeared into the kitchen. The moment she was gone, her mother's expression changed. Her warm smile faded, her eyes sharpened, and her tone became calm but serious. "Raymond," she began softly, leaning forward. "I may not know you well yet, but I know my daughter. She trusts too easily and loves too deeply. I'm warning you, if anything happens to her, anything, I will hold you responsible and you will answer to me." Raymond's charming smile froze as he began to speak. "Are you threatening me, madam?" he asked Tega's mother. His voice, low. Her mother's gaze did not leave her. She replied, "No, Raymond, it is not a threat, it is a promise," she said as the room fell silent. Raymond's jaw clenched, his pride wounded. Without another word, he stood up abruptly and walked out of the house angrily. By the time Tega came back, he was already gone, and Tega could not believe her eyes. "Yes, Raymond," she asked her mother, who sighed and revealed to her that he had gone. The hurt in Tega's eyes quickly turned to rage as she accused her mother of always ruining her life. "You chased him away, didn't you? You've never liked him. He just wanted to ruin my happiness," she said to her mother as she walked into the house to pack her things. That day marked the beginning of a cold war between mother and daughter, one that Tega did not realize would cost her everything. She packed her things and left her mother's house as she went in search of Raymond, who was waiting for her at his apartment, his face contorted with rage. "Your mother disrespected me," he said before she could even speak. "She spoke to me like I was some street boy who had no future. Tega, I can't marry a woman whose family does not respect me," he said to Tega, whose heart pounded as she tried to defend her mother. "She didn't mean it like that. She just worries about me," Tega said to Raymond, who gave her one condition before they proceed with their wedding plans. An extra 10 kgs, all it takes, and our wedding date to be fixed, he said to Tega, who agreed with no objection. If anything, Tega had expected that he would ask her to choose between her mother and himself, so hearing him request for an extra 10 kg as his condition turned out to be such a relief to her, knowing how easily it was to gain weight. From that day on, Tega doubled her eating. She ate all the unhealthy foods that she could lay her hands on: ice cream, donuts, huge portions of rice with giant turkey legs, with even pounded yam and egusi soup. Her dinner was always a feast, with spaghetti and rich tomato sauce, topped with fried plantain and grilled fish. Raymond watched her eat with great satisfaction. The smile on his face when he watched her eat encouraged her to even eat more. Whenever she was tired, he would smile at her and say, "Just one more bite for me, my queen. Remember, we have a wedding to plan." And Tega, eager to please him and lock down their future together, ate until she was so uncomfortable. Within a month, she had gained the 10 kg. Her cheeks popped out, her arms grew heavier, and her dresses no longer zipped. Raymond was thrilled. He called her perfect, holding her hand as he informed her that a date can now be set for their perfect day. Raymond handed her a card filled with so much money that had been set aside for their wedding specifically. "Spend no expense," he said, as Tega jubilated in excitement. She could not believe that her dream was finally becoming a reality. She called her friends, sent pictures of the ring again, and started browsing wedding dresses online. However, Tega began to feel a discomfort that troubled her. She could barely walk 100 meters without stopping to catch her breath. Her knees ached and her back throbbed whenever she climbed the stairs. Even sitting for long hours became so uncomfortable, and Tega could not help but worry. Despite this, she kept eating, hoping to even get bigger. One night, Tega woke up in excruciating pain. She called Raymond on the phone, and he rushed to her house to meet with her. He drove her straight to the hospital, where the doctors revealed that Tega was suffering from high blood pressure, severe joint strain, and early signs of heart complications. The doctor's voice was grave as he explained, "If she continues like this, her body might not handle the stress. She needs to lose weight immediately, change her diet, and start gentle exercises. Otherwise, her life will be in danger," he said as he walked off, leaving Tega there shaking. For the very first time, Tega felt so terrified. She could not believe what she had done to herself because of her man. Tega began to wonder why the man who claimed to love her so much seemed to care more about her size than her health. Her mother arrived at the hospital in tears. She walked up to Raymond angrily as she accused him of trying to kill her daughter. But what Raymond said to her in that moment opened a can of worms that had been shut for all these years. Raymond's lips curled into a cold smile as he looked at her mother in her eyes and began to speak. "You think I'm trying to kill your daughter?" he said, his voice low but sharp. "No, Mrs. Daniels, I'm only returning a favor that you gave me 20 years ago." Her face paled. "What are you talking about?" she asked Raymond, whose eyes darkened. "I was 16, overweight, depressed. I had just lost my parents, the only people who ever made me feel like I mattered. So I began to eat, because eating was my only escape. After a year of continuous eating, I put on so much weight. I was admitted to the hospital, and you were my nurse." Tega's mother blinked rapidly as her mouth opened in shock, but Raymond kept going, his voice steady and cutting. "You didn't just refuse. You destroyed me. You mocked me in front of the other patients, told me I smelled, called me useless, and even laughed when I cried. You made it your daily duty to remind me how disgusting you thought I was. You would yank the bed sheets off me during morning rounds and call me a fat pig. You refused to bring me meals on time, and when you finally did, you would slam the tray down and tell me I didn't need food, since I was already carrying a whole bakery in my stomach. One day, with tears streaming down my face, I asked you why you hated me so much, why you could not just be kind, why you could not see that I was only a boy who lost his parents. I told you I could be your son. Do you remember what you said to me?" Tega's mother's lips trembled as tears poured down her eyes. "You told me," Raymond continued, his voice rising, "that a fat thinking pig like me could never be your son. That your daughters were fit and responsible, and I could never compare. Then, when your daughter came that day to see you at the hospital, you brought her to my ward and told her to my face never to be fat and disgusting like me. You told her I was like a pig, and I can remember you both laughing and pointing at me." The room fell silent as Tega lay there shocked to realize that the young boy who they laughed at years ago for being fat was the same man who had now made her fat and obese. Her breathing hitched as she turned from her mother to Raymond, unable to process what she was hearing. Raymond's voice lowered, but the venom in it was unmistakable. That night, I locked myself in the hospital bathroom and stared at the bottle of pills for hours. I wanted to end it all. You made me believe my life wasn't worth living, but I didn't. I survived. I left that hospital vowing one thing, that one day I would make you feel the same helplessness that you made me feel. He glanced at Tega, who sat there frozen in shock. "When I became a billionaire, I came after your daughter, knowing fully well whose child she was. I knew exactly how I would get my revenge, and I did it with so much joy in my heart." his next words landed like a knife to their chest. Every extra bite she took, every kilo she gained was my victory over you. And now, seeing her like this, I finally won, he said as he walked out of the hospital, cutting all contact with Tega and her entire family. Tega's mother let out a strange song as she realized what her actions had done to them. Her daughter Tega sat there frozen to realize that the man who she thought was her dream had been her family's nightmare all along. Now, Tega's mother was left with the responsibility of caring for her overweight daughter, who was now admitted in the same hospital that she had once worked in. The same hospital where everything began every morning as she helped Tega sit up from the bed. Guilt gnawed at her like a disease. She could still hear her own cruel laughter from decades ago echoing in her mind, mingled with Raymond's bitter words. In that moment, she wished she could turn back the hands of time to undo the damage that she had done. She saw firsthand what a cruel word can do to damage one's life forever. She was a very wicked nurse who had no compassion towards her patients, especially those who she believed brought their sickness upon themselves. She felt so agitated, caring for these kinds of clients who she believed their sickness was avoidable and that they were only here to make her work more difficult. But now, watching her once vibrant daughter gasp her breath after walking only a few steps, she understood the true cause of her cruelty. She had mocked an orphan boy into bitterness, and years later, that bitterness had come home to devour the person that she loved most. Tega rarely spoke. Her laughter was gone. The bubbly woman who once planned her wedding, down to the smallest detail, now stared blankly at the white hospital walls, the sparkle in her eyes replaced by an empty, haunted look. Some nights, her mother sat alone in the hospital chapel, weeping into her hands. The same God she claimed to serve as a nurse now seemed far away, but she prayed anyway for Tega's spirit, for the strength to face each day, and for forgiveness that she wasn't sure she deserved. The whispers from nurses in the corridors caught deep. Some of them had heard Raymond's story and looked at her with tiny veiled contempt. It was as though the walls of the hospital itself were testifying against her. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, Tega began physical therapy, supported on each side by hospital staff. Her mother following behind with a wheelchair in case her legs gave out. Every step was painful, but Tega never complained. One rainy afternoon, as she watched Tega struggle through her exercises, her mother's heart broke all over again. She approached her, knelt beside her chair, and with tears streaming down her face, whispered, "My daughter, I am sorry for everything. I'm the reason he hurt you. I planted the seed of his hatred. If I could take your pain and carry it myself, I would." For the first time in months, Tega looked directly at her. Her voice was faint, but her words cut straight through the room. "Mommy, you didn't just hurt me. You hurt me too, and now we are both paying for it." The truth hung in the air like a heavy fog, and from that day on, her mother vowed to care for Tega with the patience, kindness, and gentleness that she had denied so many in the past. She knew redemption wouldn't erase the past, but perhaps if she poured love into every moment that they had there, it could at least heal the wounds that she had carved. They left the hospital months later as changed women. Tega physically lighter, her mother emotionally heavier with the weight of lessons learned. Raymond was never seen or heard from again, but his revenge had taught Tega and her mother an unforgettable lesson that they carried for the rest of their lives. The lesson to be learned from these stories is that what you sow into the lives of others will sooner or later return to you, sometimes in ways you least expect, and on the people you love the most. Cruel words can outlive the moments they are spoken, festering in someone's heart until they grow into vengeance. Tega learned that love built on control and unhealthy sacrifice is not love at all, and that no man's approval is worth your health or dignity. Her mother learned that even a passing insult can shape the course of someone's life, and that kindness should never be withheld, especially from those who are vulnerable. In the end, they both understood that true love protects, true words heal, and true beauty is never measured by a man's desire, but by the wholeness of the soul and the health of the body. I hope you enjoy